What's up, guys? Matt Voke, call sign Jerry, here at an art festival. Kind of begs the question, why are some people really good at innovating and others just incapable? Is it the size? Is it the culture? Is it the structure?
It's not about the person, it's not about what the CEO says, it's not about some squishy thing called culture. It's about structure. Culture is the patterns of behavior you see on the surface, you observe. Structure is the thing underneath that drives those patterns.
Number one, separate your soldiers and your artists. Soldiers being those engineers, the guys that are putting the rubber onto the pavement and actually going, from their artists, which are able to draw up on whiteboards, throw sticky notes up there. Their office is a complete mess. It's not just as simple as separating them in rooms. You actually probably need a separate structure for governing, for managing, for leading those individuals. A location, task allocation. Don't try to cut corners and efficiencies if you're looking for those loonshots, because those will be the first ones to get cut.
The big ideas that have changed our world, the breakthroughs that have changed the course of science, business, and history were rarely announced with blaring trumpets and red carpets. The most important ideas were often neglected and dismissed for decades, their champions written off as crazy. That's why I call them loonshots. A moonshot is a destination, a big exciting goal like eliminating poverty or curing cancer. Nurturing loonshots is how we get there.
You can nurture those, both product and strategy loonshots. Safi breaks it up into P-shot and S-shot. The P-shot, that product loonshot, is inventing the next camera, the next mousetrap, etc. And then arguably the more important ones are those strategy loonshots, because you can get in a trap of pursuing the next best innovation. Number two, you need to create dynamic equilibrium. Basically what you need to do here is you need to not neglect either one of these groups, the soldiers and the artists. You need to love them equally. You need to be able to manage the transfer of that technology from the artists into the soldiers and have those teams be able to work together. You need to be able to kind of take a little bit of a step back, even for a really charismatic leader. You can't be very hands-on in everything, or else you're going to shepherd, because that's who you are, your preconceived notions of what should be, rather than what's termed as the gardener, of just letting your flowers bloom where and how they should. Appoint and train product champions. Not every single innovator and every single artist is going to be able to take that invention, that Steve Wozniak, computer geek, through to what Steve Jobs was able to do with that, for instance. So you need that champion that's going to be able to bridge those worlds. Sometimes that artist is capable of doing that, most of the times not. Number three, you need to be able to spread a systems mindset. And this was something I really much enjoyed with this book, because a lot of these leadership, management, innovation books, they'll preach culture, 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 and then they won't actually tell you how to make it.
It's not about some squishy thing called culture, it's about structure.
He did a good job in saying that the system is just important, and a lot of times more important than actual culture. Sure, you put a table tennis and vending machine in your lobby. That doesn't mean that you have an innovative culture. But if your organization is ready for that, with everything we talked about earlier, that's going to be very important. With that, you're going to look at how the decisions are made in your organization, especially when it is choosing to onboard or discard those innovative ideas. And then how can processes be improved? How do you adopt that systems mindset rather than just focusing on those culture and very, very small improvements? How do we structure our processes, our organizations, so that we can ensure when those innovations do come across our desk that we're able to see them and then rocket them upstairs? Number four, reduce the politics. In every organization that gets above a certain size, and Safi says that 150 is about the right number for when that innovation starts to be challenged by personal incentives. And I kind of believe that. After you get above 100 people, then you start to have some politicking and jockeying for position. that's going on, too selfish at the detriment of that organization. So how do you imply soft incentives, not necessarily pay, convincing people that they're going to make a difference? They're tackling a hard problem. In the military, you always have that motivation of the nation above thyself, for instance. And then, if anything else, peer recognition. When people publish papers and they actually have people reading their papers and actually citing their papers, for instance, that peer recognition, that status, that power that goes along with that can't be underestimated. Some of those things you can mirror in organizations, even large organizations. You need to be able to ID and fix mid-level manager mismatches. So when that mid-level manager is doing things for his betterment or her betterment and not necessarily for that of the company, that's obviously an issue. You need to change the structure of that organization so that he or she has a little bit less control over the subordinates, maybe widen the span of control, and then ensure that those incentives aren't misaligned so that that individuals prosper when the organization prospers, so that those ideas, those successes are valued, and you need to be able to chase those. When you do fail, find out why you failed. He is a good example of Friendster in the book. Friendster, the predecessor to Facebook, was a very successful website originally, but it was having a massive outflow of people, mainly because the website kept crashing. So instead of individuals not liking the website, which was originally thought, they just needed to fix the fact that they didn't have money for good servers. Listen to the suck with curiosity. This is a challenge, but it's also fun at the same time. So it takes a very specifically motivated individual to realize, all right, I failed. Let's do a post-mortem on that whatever we just did, and find out exactly why it failed. Nug down into exactly why we fail so that we can get better. If we keep doing the same thing over and over again, keep failing, not going to get any better. Or what's even worse, if we just succeed and then subsequently our efforts are met with failure, we just don't understand it. You could have just gotten lucky that first time. Spirit, relationships, and time. That's what he closes on. And just like every other successful entrepreneur that's out there, is you can get really bogged down in the minutia, the go, the nitnoid focus, the all-in, no-fail operation that you're pursuing because you're very passionate about it. But don't neglect the things that really matter to us as humans. The relationships are something that you just can't replace with money and material things. And then ultimately, time is our most valuable resource. It's the only thing that we can't reproduce. You cannot rewind time yet. And please don't forget to value the things that you have today. If you guys like this very short synopsis, please give it a thumbs up. Hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. Please leave some comments. Let me know what you guys want to see. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Failure point in innovation is never supply of ideas. There's tons of ideas. There's good artists and good soldiers. The failure point is the transfer, because they speak different languages. The obvious one is from the artist to the soldier. So I have this beautiful baby idea. Why don't you go? Everybody just go use it. And in fact, that, as an example, is what happened with radar. The scientists here at MIT stood at the top of a building. They figured out the microwave technology. Said, oh, we can see. They aimed at the Boston Harbor. They had submarines there. They said we could see the submarines finally. Great, done, battle line over. Here you go, guys. Knock yourself out. Nothing happened. Pilots didn't want to use it. Bush intervened, got FDR, got Stimson, the Secretary of War, on a plane to use the radar, and he said, holy cannoli. And he came back and he left a note on the desk, personally, of every general in the Army and the Navy, and said, I've seen this new radar technology. Why? That's the one way. The other way is missed even more by teams and companies. Everybody creates an innovation lab. They miss this transfer. But the other way back is critical. Why? Projects never work the first time. The marketers, the product people, the soldiers, you have something that's selling well, you're paid on commission. What are you going to do? Sell more of that thing. Somebody comes along with a new product, it doesn't work very well, you have to spend days and weeks figuring it out, you have to call, it breaks down, or you can just sell more of the old thing. What are you going to do? If you have a home and it's not that you're a bad person, it's structure drives culture. If that's what you compensate people on, that's what they're going to do. So you have to solve that problem. So Bush finally got them to use it, still nothing happened.
pilots had it in their plane, but they weren't using it. He was pulling his hair out. He said, all right, you sold it. It was the failure the other way around because it wasn't working very well. So he got the scientist in the cockpit and said, I want you guys to go in the cockpit and figure out what's going on. And they did, went in the cockpit, and they realized that when you're flying hundreds of miles an hour and people are shooting at you, the pilots, they had this box with 13 switches on it. They said, there's no freaking way I'm trying to figure out these 13 switches while people are shooting me. I just want to survive and get away from these bullets. So like, oh my God, the technology is fine. Our user interface is lousy. So they went back in the lab and they invented that oscilloscope with the sweeping line that you see in movies and the little dots, now called a PPI display. Gave them the PPI display, and that was March of 1943. That's when the pilots began to use radar. As soon as they got that, they began shooting those